Today, first of all, my name is Drew, and today we're going to be doing an overview of the NBA slash specifically the Bulls basketball program. And let's just get straight into it. So, introduction to the NBA, right? NBA for short, also known as the National Basketball League, wait, Association, and it's actually located. The headquarters is located in New York, New York, and their headquarters for their streaming services are based out of Atlanta, actually. And they have 30 teams in this league, two conferences, the Eastern and Western, obviously. Each conference has three teams. Yeah, and the regular season is 82 games, and there's All Star game, All Star break, dunk 3 point contests, and then during All Star break is when the trade deadline ends, and that's when teams cannot trade their players anymore. No more trade talk. And then after that is the NBA postseason, which is like the tournament, and the finals is like whoever wins. Now, introducing the Chicago Bulls. The headquarters is in Chicago, Illinois, obviously, and their current owner is Jerry Reinsdorf. They are also privately owned, so this means like nobody can buy like specific shares of their team. But what they can do is buy shares of like people who sponsor them because NBA teams go off a lot of like sponsors and stuff. So technically they can, but they can't straight up just buy some of the Bulls. And also one more fun fact: the Bulls' current best player is a rookie named Matez Buzeles. Just wanted to throw that out there. Also, so a little background of the NBA. It was established June 6, 1946. It began as the National Basketball Association of America, or the BAA, and the BAA National Basketball League, NBL, officially merged during 1949, the 1949-50 season. And after this, what happened was there were two leagues. There's the NBA and then the ABA. And it was like kind of like conferences basically, but the teams like didn't play against each other until like the tournament. But then they decided that was like kind of stupid, so they just made two conferences of the NBA. And it was the NBA was founded at Commodore Hotel in New York City, and the first president or like commissioner of the NBA was Maurice Podoloff. There's also the goat right there, Mr. MJ. And so, little background of Chicago Bulls. They were founded in 1967, January 16th, and their first arena was the International Amphitheater. And a little fun fact about the International Amphitheater, they actually, before it was used for basketball, they used it for horse auctions. So they basically like play in like this big pit, but put the court over it. It was a whole big thing. It was a lot of maintenance, so eventually they obviously had to move it. But and some of the previous owners were the Wirtz family and Dick Klein, and then ever since then they have had the same owner. And they had a couple different names before the Bulls. So there's the Chicago Stags, then the Chicago Packers, and then they took like a couple years off out of the league because I don't think they were like. Basically, what was happening was they weren't making enough profit, and the owner didn't really think it was worth it. But then they ended up giving it one more chance, started back up, and that's the Chicago Bulls everyone knows and loves today. And They also drafted one of the face of the league, like I just said, Michael Jordan, the GOAT, in 1984. And he was most known for winning 6 championships. And he had a great coach, Phil Jackson. He also played with one of the top 25 players of all time, Scottie Pippen. And yeah, and then these are some of the other greats in the corner here that they've had, like Artis Gilmore, Derrick Rose. There's the God Squad right there. And yeah. But anyways, the governance of the structure of the NBA. So there's a board of directors, with the commissioner and the team owners, like of each team, and then the commissioner currently is Adam Silver. This guy right here, he's been it for I think 33 years now. So yeah, and he runs everything. He runs every year. He is the guy who runs the draft and is the guy who comes out and says who's what pick, and whenever somebody hits like speaks on the NBA, it's him. And the governance structure of the Chicago Bulls is there are multiple rules in the rule book. So like basically what this means is the Chicago Bulls have like a certain amount of things that they can and can't do. And for instance, they have rules like for the fans obviously, like certain like at the bars or at the concession stands, like the fans can only buy a certain amount of drinks before they're cut off. And then they have other types of rules, like what the permissions of each job can do. So, like, the president, there's the president, vice president, um, board of directors, the GM, then there below him's the coach. And basically, like, all these people have, like, certain roles. So, like, the coach, let's say, for example, his rule book would be like, there's certain things that if he did on the court, he would get fined for. There's certain things that like players would get fined for. Like, one of the most famous ones recently would be like Ja Morant. He gets fined for like making gun symbols all the time and gets fined quite a lot of money actually. But anyways, the some of the policies of the Chicago Bulls is their skill development philosophy, and this was put in place by their vice president. So basically, what he was saying, I mean, it was kind of like a like statement, but basically what he was saying was he wanted to put a bigger priority on individual skill, which they were kind of doing anyway, but I guess he wanted to put more of an emphasis on it than whatever else they were doing at the time in practice. And they're they have a code of conduct, um, and it's basically like I was just talking about with the players and coaches, and it's like the basically a long list of rules that they have, and all these violations will, like I also said, would result in a fine, and some of these fines can be very great depending on what the player does. Especially like if they cuss in their interview, that's probably at least a couple 100,000. And then there's the alcohol thing too that I just talked about. Um, and some of the major sponsorships that the NBA has right now and media deals. Um, in 2024, the NBA signed a media agreements with Walt Disney Company, NBA Universal, Amazon Prime, and there are some other ones too, like Hulu, and there's one more. But some top investors in the NBA are financial institutions, technology companies, healthcare organizations, like alcohol companies especially, because it's a big thing in the bars. Usually they play in all the games everywhere, and then the automobile manufacturers, and these are the top investors. There's a lot more, but they make up about $660 billion of all these sponsors, and that is about how much the NBA is worth in total. Some major sponsorships for the Bulls. Foot Locker is their main partner. They do have a couple other local ones that sponsor them for not near as much money. Um, like one of their famous local pizza shops. The United Airlines are also one of their big sponsors, and Calamos Investments are their big meteorite deal, and that's who they do business with in terms of media. Some current stuff with the NBA here. Sorry, I didn't mean to have that. Some current stuff with the NBA. Um, Basically, last last major thing to happen. LeBron was the first ever basketball player to ever play with his son on the same team on the same court, and I just thought that was really awesome, and that's what I had to bring out. Also, rookie of the year this year was Stephon Castle. MVP was Shea Gilgis Alexander, even though a lot of people like to argue that it should have been Nikola Jokic. It's been a big thing. And the third guy for the running was Giannis, who low key had a sleeper season and also definitely could have been the MVP. They all had great seasons though. And then current events of the Chicago Bulls. Okay, see ya. But anyways, current events of the Chicago Bulls would be their new rookie recently, Montez Buzelis, have been popping off for the squad. He's been doing great, and after All Star break, he was averaging 16 and a half points per game, and his plus minus was one of the highest on the team, besides Josh Giddey, who was at first, and Kobe White. And they've also been playing great as well. They were playing really good until they got beat in the play-in game by the Heat. So unfortunately, they are not going to be in the playoffs. Some interesting facts slash ethical dilemmas of the NBA. One big one in '07, Tim Donaghy, a referee, was found guilty of betting his own games, which, I mean, that's just intolerable. Another guy who recently got kicked out of the NBA for that was Michael Porter Jr.'s brother, Richard Porter Jr., and um, he he got kicked out for also betting on his own games, and I think he was betting the over, but it's still illegal. And but he was shooting a lot more. So, and over the years, some of the players have been found in ethical dilemmas of gambling, brawls, shout out Meta World Peace, and sexual assault, which I believe the most recent one in the NBA for that was actually no, it was more just physical assault. Kevin Porter Jr. He got kicked out of the league a couple years back, and now he's back actually playing on the Bucks, who are currently playing the Pacers right now. So some ethical dilemmas with the Chicago Bulls was um, a big fight. This is probably the last one. The big fight in 2017 between Nikola Mirotic and Bobby Portis, and it did involve an altercation where Bobby Portis and Mirotic were in an argument during practice. Things got a little heated, and nobody stepped in. And Portis ended up punching Mirotic in the face, leaving him with facial fractures and a concussion as well. and they were both fined and ended up being traded. And just want to wrap up the NBA. The National Basketball Association is a group of 32 basketball teams that all compete head to head all season to play for their fans, a title, and to build their legacy. And many fans love watching the NBA, and all have different teams. And a conclusion of the Chicago Bulls: the Bulls have a great legacy of their own, especially during the Michael Jordan era in the 80s. And they are trying to live up to their recent times, which they unfortunately have not for a while. The last time they actually made any noise in the playoffs was in 2013, I believe, in Derrick Rose's MVP season when him and Jimmy Butler teamed up and made a little run. But unfortunately got dropped off by LeBron. So anyways, thank you so much for watching.